Hi, everyone. Welcome back again to What? The Iconist Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Barry 3D Carter for Deep Dark Delicious. Hey. And I'm here with my cousin,
DJ Rod C. Yeah.
Do your dance, Rod. Do your dance, man. So once again, thank you for tuning in. You know the drill, right? Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification button. Every Tuesday we are dropping new videos and podcasts as we're going along. So, and we always do a little bonus one once in a while on Thursdays. So those come out randomly. If you want to catch them, please hit the notification button and follow along, because all those likes you do help us grow and the channel grow. If you want to find all the links to everything we're doing, what I'm doing, you can always go to barry3d.com. That's my website. It has all the links for Iconists and anything I'm part of. Check my blog, see the social media links on each page. And some quick shout outs. One big shout out to Jaybird Digital Arts. Once again, like we always do. Thank you very much for the templates and overlays. Jaybird. We're going to follow that up with, my buddy there, Jimmy English. So thank you very much for all the times he's had me on Beyond the Balcony podcast. Look him up. A lot entertaining stuff on his podcast. Anything from 1980 and prior. He brings on a lot of interesting guests. And I said, look for the microphone on the red background, Back to the Balcony. It's a podcast. They have a Facebook page. Find them. Look at my blog to see some of the older ones I was on. And it's not just me. You can find a whole slew of movies. He's got a plethora of audio, podcasts there and in a library. You can go through, and it'd be fun to listen to his perspective along with his guest and go through that. Nice. Want to shout out Paul Ash once again for Battlecom, and thanks for having me on again. And please check out Battlecom. They talk funny, the check-in show. So he does 3-4 shows weekly. And then I got to give it up to my boys who I'm with on a regular basis. We do about 3-4 videos a week that drop on YouTube, and have a Facebook channel and a YouTube channel. You can find all that through my website. That's Touch of Gray Matter. So that's what it is on YouTube. Touch of Gray Matter, with the comedy troupe I'm a part of, which is called Touch of Gray. 4 dads trying to make it through the world today. So that's run and put together with my homeboy Dave Sokolowski, Zolf Ali, Thomas Patrice, and myself, Barry 3D Carter. Nice. Once again, you can find all those things there on the website. And you can also look up Dave's website, which is a tonoffunentertainment.com, to find more of what he's doing, the merchandise he's doing over at Redbubble. So you can get the mug with Resting Dave face. If you shout out anybody or you follow them, let them know that you found them through this channel. Hashtag the Iconist Podcast. Greatly appreciate it. As I said, there's enough going on, and it's summertime. The TV's just reruns. There's nothing to watch. So we'll get to the subject matter soon. My man, DJ Rod C, where can we find you?
You can find me all over the world. No, not all over the world. I'm in certain parts of the world.
No, I don't know. So definitely. He means virtually, not physically, because COVID. Where can we find you, brother?
I'm just locked up. No, seriously, you can definitely find me on Instagram. You can find me at Mr. Rod C. You can definitely follow me there. That'd be greatly appreciated. Definitely. You also can find me on Twitch. You can find me on Facebook. Again, at Mr. Rod C. We'll keep it all tied together. So you can find me at Mr. Rod C. on Facebook. Then you can also find me on twitch.tv/DJ Rod C, where I do, I play live shows and, entertain the people, have fun and everything along that line. Listen, definitely you can just check me out there. But the main thing, follow us on Iconics Podcast on Instagram. Definitely be able to find us from there and we branch off. Let's go. So that's what we got to do.
That's what we got to do. All right. Thank you for us doing our housekeeping, and let's get right into it. We are talking about Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack, the series cartoon, a lot of fun to watch when it came out. And here we go, the big drum roll. I'm going to try to get this name as right as possible. So the creator of Samurai Jack was Gendy Takarowski.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
That's good.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. I wish the name was Bob, but so he's been around in the animation world for a while. We'll touch on some of the other things, but the main thing that came to me was Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack ran for a total of 5 seasons.
Yep.
So 4 seasons, were done in one shot, and about 13 years later, season number 5 dropped on Adult Swim. So yes, we can see the change of not the art style or the storytelling, but it got a little bit more darker on season 5 as opposed to the first 4 seasons. So that's why. So one, his art style was, really beautiful. It was very clean, crisp to watch. A lot of action. His mantra was, in a 22-minute episode, he wanted 16 to 17 minutes of just action. Very little dialogue. Extremely little dialogue. Everything was moved visually and with the music per episode. So it was fun to watch. Most shows, action shows have too much talking. The hero don't need to talk that much. So Samurai Jack turned around and did that. The original release date was August 10th of 2001, all the way up to May 20th of 2017. So that explains that gap that was in there. A total of 62 episodes, and a lot of cool tidbits on this show. So, for example, the voice for the few times that Jack spoke, Samurai Jack was done by Phil Lamar.
Yes.
Right? Phil Lamar, you might recognize him from other voice work as from Static Shock.
Yes.
He did Jon Stewart from Justice League.
Yes.
The Green Lantern. He's got a plethora of acting voiceover creds, but where I knew Phil Lamar at first was the energetic UPS guy from Mad TV.
Love to say, let's all go back to Mad TV.
Yeah. Mad TV was awesome.
Listen, it was a classic. Mad TV was a classic, and then he definitely brought a lot of life to it with that character that he basically built and just called his own. That was him. Like he's saying, years later, we can still remember Phil Lamar as the UPS delivery guy. All that energy. I'm like,
right?
I can't even keep up with that guy.
A lot of casts from Mad TV, side note, are still doing a lot of stuff up to date. So you just got to look for them. For me, I thought at one point I really got into them a little bit more than Mad TV. It was new. It was different. Of course, Mad TV had Spy versus Spy, the cartoon, and it goes back to Mad Magazine. So I like all the tie-ins. So with that said, I mean, that was good on Phil Lamar. I mean, people are not realizing that a black man was doing an Asian man's voice.
That's true.
A Japanese samurai warrior, but even though he's like a slim guy, he's got that voice. I mean, look at his voice for Jon Stewart. It's It's a deep voice. You expecting this deep, big kind of, are you doing a beast of a man showing up, and you see Phil walking, and you're like, what? Right?
Hilarious.
Yeah, man. So, that those are the cool things. So pretty much, if you're not sure, so Samurai Jack, bottom line is, he starts off in the past. He goes to fight Aku, who you can see here in my background. He's a evil entity sorcerer, and Jack almost beats him during his period of time in the Edo Japan era. So before Aku is about to lose, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna fight you when I'm stronger, and whisk him in the way to the future to the year 4177.
Yeah.
And where Aku's a lot stronger, and he hears that Jack shows up, and he goes trying to fight Jack. Because at this point, he's got control of the world, and Jack is trying to save it. So, once again, this is not something to reboot. The only thing that needs to happen with this series is to replay it.
Oh yeah, we listen. We need this generation of people need to be familiarized with Samurai Jack. They need to understand that this is a cult classic. There are people that you can definitely talk to those from the early 2000s, and then realize I remember the conversation. I'm sure if you bring up Samurai Jack to someone who watched it back then, now that's 20 years ago. Clearly, anybody's gonna say "Oh, I remember that," and they will pull back some nostalgia off of them. Bring that to now. This is basically 2022. You need 2021 is we're halfway through that. So let's see if we can get that all done up for the remaining of this year or by next year.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, keep in mind, right? This came out in 2001, the first episode in August 10th, and now we are 2021. And by the time you're watching this, it's gonna be like, in end of July. So we're borderline a 20-year anniversary to this.
This is it.
Right.
This is what I'm saying. Go ahead.
Yeah, and just to give you some more feedback. Okay, so Jendi, and we'll get back with Samurai Jack. So Jendi's also done other animated projects. So he's done the Star Wars Clone Wars, the little short episodes that were like 2 minutes each, but if you put them together, they run about an hour or so. And once again, pure action. He did a season 1, season 2. If you have Disney Plus, go and look those up. Buy the DVD. I bought the DVD box set way before Disney Plus. And once again, little talking. Pure action, pure Jedi action. How he got that in. I think season 2 he did a little bit more dialogue with the characters, but he never took away about having it fully animated, because there's a little short with Mace Windu, and Mace Windu takes on a bunch of drones, loses his lightsaber on a sand planet, like looks like Tatooine, and he gets into like hand-to-hand combat, destroying these robots, and then finding his lightsaber, making it onto the ship, fights his way in there. But like literally, he was busting out martial arts. Like, this is how cool Mace Windu was, and possibly could have been. Like, the action is what you wanted to see in a Jedi-esque movie. Without the lightsaber, like, to show you how deadly they were. But Samurai Jack. So let's go back to the history of Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack, his dad was an emperor, right? So no, we're going to go even further back. In the beginning of time, in the Big Bang Theory happened, and then a darkness came out, a cosmic entity, darkness, and it had an evil, and it was trying to take over everything. And then 3 gods got together. So you had the Egyptian sun god Ra. You had Odin.
Rama.
Right?
Odin, okay.
And, and Vishnu, I believe it was. Huh?
Rama.
Thank you. My apologies. Rama.
No problem.
Right? From the Indian faith. And they all got together to fight and destroy what this mass was as Aku. And they fought and destroyed him. A little essence of him survived. It landed on Earth. When Aku landed on Earth, he landed in Japan. But because of the impact of his essence landing on Earth, it destroyed all the dinosaurs. So that's to show you how he's kind of tying things in there. So, yeah. So, they always said, an asteroid came and what destroyed the dinosaurs? Aku destroyed the dinosaurs in this telling of the tale, And then he stayed there in the Earth for many centuries until, man started kind of Cro-Magnon man, and cavemen started going around. And then it, finally got into feudal Japan. And then he starts kind of growing like a root, like a spiked tree kind of thing, and was kind of poisoning the land. So Jack's dad turned around and said, well, I'm going to go and fight the evil, when his wife was still pregnant with Jack. Right? Gets out there, gets the army, because he's the emperor, in his armor and everything, goes, starts fighting, ends up getting captured. The whole army gets wiped out, killed. Then while he's being, Aku turns around and says, well, your fighting spirit kind of gave me form, so now I am Aku instead of just some spiky tree. He goes, I'm going to destroy everything. So he goes back to the Emperor's village, destroys it, burns it all, while keeping, Jack's dad prisoner. Jack's dad, watches through the suffering, and he's still trying to go through, but he's chained to a tree, gets rescued by those 3 gods, right? So by Rama, Odin, and Ra. They gave him a magical armor that was all like white. They gave him a magical sword, sight beyond sight. And he came back fighting and flying on a cloud. That to me seems so Dragon Ball.
You said it, I did, but that's exactly it.
But it goes into the Japanese mythology, right? So the flying cloud, and the warriors on the flying cloud, which is so cool. There's an old school cartoon that's hard to find, and it's called Bruce Lee and the Chinese Gods. You could probably find it here on YouTube or some mention of it. But so the dad comes back, fights Aku, kills him, captures his essence in the sword. So it sucked into the sword is Aku, and he takes the sword and he jabs it into the ground. So it was almost like, the Soul Eater sword that's used by
Katana.
Oh my God, her name's gonna escape me right now.
Katana.
Exactly.
Right.
Thank you. Katana from DC Comics.
Mm-hmm.
Puts the sword into the ground, almost like Excalibur kind of thing. And then he finds out, oh, well, when his village got destroyed and everything was burnt, his wife was still alive. She gave birth to a baby, which was Jack. Right? But and I'll get to his name in a minute. So turned around, gave that. It's like, okay. So they rebuilt, when Jack was 8 years old, his dad told him the tale of, what happened with Aku and that evil and how to fight him and all that. And it was kind of a bedtime story. And, Jack's only 8 years old. Next thing you know, about 10 minutes later, guess who's back? Back again. Aku's back. Tell a friend. Aku shows up to get revenge. He escapes. He comes back with a vengeance, literally, and kills off Jack's dad. His dad tries to fight him off and kills his dad, and the mom grabs him and says, okay, I got to put you on a boat. You got to leave. You can't stay here because you'll get killed off.
Right.
So Jack goes on a world tour with a mic in my hand. Sorry. I don't know why I'm having so much, hip hop to me today. That's hip hop is what I am.
That's what you do. It's all good.
That's right. I wake up hip hop, go to sleep hip hop, dream about hip hop because I am hip hop. Joel Ortiz, sorry, Joel Ortiz. There we go. Look him up. So he goes on a whole tour around the world, learning from different cultures how to fight, how to read, train his mind, train his body. So he really pulled a Batman. He pulled a Bruce Wayne.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, look, he went to Africa.
Yeah.
He learned about, how to fight with a staff. He went and was China, learned to fight like Shaolin monks. And he made a best friend there, right? Who was the same age as him at the time.
Right.
He went over to Greece, where he learned how to wrestle. He went over to Egypt, where he learned to read hieroglyphics. He went over, all around the world. He went all around, man, learning every kind of different fighting style there was. He pulled a Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
Look at that.
The key things that stand out is when he went to Egypt and he met his best friend. Sorry, not Egypt. Sorry. When he went to China and he finally made a friend, and this was his best friend. This guy, it was almost like a Storm Shadow Snake Eyes thing without one betraying the other. It could be almost seen like Batman right now with his best friend, who's known as the Ghostmaker in current comic books that's going on right now, because you find out Bruce had a best friend, well, his last best friend was Hush, and now this best friend was there when he was going around the world training to become Batman, so pre-Batman, so Jack went around the world and did this. Been around the world and I can't tap. Okay, so went, trained, studied. When he got to Egypt and learned to read hieroglyphics, he realized, there was something there, how to get rid of Aku with the sword. So when he finally goes back home about 10 years later, so Jack, maybe a little bit more. So Jack left when he was 8. Jack got back when I think he was close to like 20 something. And he got back and he sees his mom, and his mom hands him the sword. And he's like, okay, I'm prepared. I am going to deal with Aku. Right. And then he wanted to go and give Aku, what? As Rod would say?
5 across the eyes.
5 across the eyes. Right? 5 across the eyes. And when he went to give Aku 5 across the eyes, he was winning. Aku was losing. And Aku said, oh, Samurai, you are too strong. I will send you to the future. And he was like, no. And sent him to the year 4177. Right? So far we've got, very similar to how Bruce Wayne trained, right. We've got tragedy, we've got magic, we've got the gods, we've got a magic sword, and we've got time travel. All within the first couple episodes. We got the extinction of dinosaurs. Henceforth, now we know why we need Jurassic Park.
Hilarious. Okay. I see. I see it. I see it. You're right. In the beginning, there's enough, there's enough ingredients
Look.
to hook you in. And if you at least like one of three or five of what's on there, yeah, you can't tell me you won't be compelled to say, okay, I need to see where the story's gonna lead. And like you said, Aku decided I will be much stronger in the future because I know I will take control of this world. This world is mine to take control. So I will see this guy 3,000 years from now, 3,000 plus years from now. So it's okay. I'll still be here and I will be able to defeat him. I'm good. Send you a wire. So, yeah, that type of storytelling is very unique. Mm-hmm. You don't hear that often. You don't hear that type of storytelling. No. So that's why it definitely pulls you in like, oh, that's a reverse Back to the Future. We're going to the future. So, I'm going to put you into the future and I'll deal with you there, while I go back to the gym and start training.
Right.
I could smash. That's all it is.
Yeah. I'm telling you, and so a lot of it said very little dialogue, but a lot of imagery, a lot. So you got to watch, and it's just nice how it's like reading a live. It's like a cartoon picture book.
That's exactly it, and that's a great thing about Samurai Jack. That if you are you are everybody who's watching this, cartoons, comics, you're looking from that aspect. You're born looking at, you're used to looking stuff on paper. So no one is basically reading to you. You're reading it yourself. So let the imagery read to me. Let the imagery tell me a story. And while enough, Samurai Jack, like you said, it's like maybe 30% talking. Very rare. There's just any conversation. Even from him, you may have some other character who may talk more than Jack. But Jack himself, he doesn't talk. He barely talks.
Yeah.
And then the show barely has any talking himself. Three quarters of the show is all about imagery, and the imagery definitely brings you in. And for me, what I loved about it is that we're in a futuristic time now, so it was great that at least I could say the makers didn't. We have a good idea what the future is going to hold, but now you're talking 3,000 years in the future. Listen, we might probably have some places where history has repeated itself. Certain type of culture, certain type of things may have repeated itself. So now you see this mesh of having future technology happening, but yet you see people who are it's just a futuristic kind of merging. It's a melting pot of different stuff going on, and you realize why can't those type of genres intertwine together? And it blends very well. Like there's never a time I've seen something where I'm like thinking like, that looks kind of odd, but then you're like, you know what? This is the year of Aku. This makes sense. Yeah. Please continue. And that's it.
Well, of course. I mean, and look, and when I say I find, and I'm not sure if a lot of it was intentional, but I found a lot of parallels on certain things. Okay. Mm-hmm. So as I said before, going around the world, trained, reminds me of how Bruce Wayne did it, comes back, get vengeance, for his family. All right, got it. Time travel involved. Okay, so as soon as he gets into the year 4177, and he gets, boom, teleported in. He's standing around, he's amazed about what he's seeing, flying cars, all this stuff. The first people he runs into are these three dogs. So these dogs, they're like people. It's like how, it's you see the cartoon. It's like a Bugs Bunny, right? Where a dog is not a dog. A dog is a person. So he runs into these three dogs talking.
That's another thing too.
And they're talking to him, and it's like they gave him the name Jack. It's like, what's your name? What's your name? And I can't remember exactly the conversation, but it works out. They gave him the name Jack, right? And that's what he sticks with. But that's not his name. Keep in mind, they always refer to the show's called Samurai Jack. He was given the name Jack when he got to the future, but that was not his name when he was born as a little kid. I mean, clearly from up to the age of 8, he was not called Jack. Everyone just knows him as Jack, right? It's like being back in Barbados. Everyone's got a name, but is that their name? Let me tell you something, right? On a personal note, years ago, my cousin called me up. not Rod, one of our cousins. He was back in Barbados. He calls me up and he's talking to me and he's like, "Hey Barry, Merry Christmas." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, Merry Christmas." He's like, "You don't know who this is?" I'm like, because he said his name, and I'm like, "Yeah, So my cousin Grantley's there, and Grantley's like, "Yeah, that's my brother. My brother Trevor wants to say hi to you." So I'm like, "Trevor, okay. Hey Trevor, how you doing? Merry Christmas." He's like, "Merry Christmas, Barry. How you doing?" "I'm good, Trevor. Yourself?" "You don't know who you're talking to?" "Yeah, man, I'm talking to Trevor." He goes, "You don't know, eh?" "Don't know what?" Right? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, Trevor. He's like, "You met me when you came to Barbados. We came down twice." Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I went down twice, right? We were hanging out. Mm-hmm. He goes, "Wait a minute, I know what it is. You don't know me as Trevor. It's Fuzzy." Oh! It was only till he said Fuzzy that it clicked to me who I was talking to. Right? I, from young to a grown man, known him as Fuzzy. I didn't know him as Trevor. Right? When Grantley passed me the phone, he says, "My brother Trevor's on the phone." And now I should have realized 1 and 1 is 2 because Grantley only got one brother. Not knowing that I should have been, "Oh, Trevor is Fuzzy." No, I'm thinking, who's Trevor? He said, "Remember I told you around? I took you around Barbados, man. We went around Fuzzy's Corner." Yes, he's got a corner named after him because one time he was driving a car and he rolled the car over. So everyone in Barbados refers to that corner as Fuzzy's Corner. So if you know Fuzzy, you know that as Fuzzy's Corner. That's a funny joke in itself. And you want to see the rest of this story explained, catch me on stage. But so that gets back to my point, as everyone knows him as Jack. The show's called Samurai Jack, but Jack is not his birth name. I mean, in Japan, it wouldn't be, Jack. Jack is not a name that you would have in Japan.
Yeah,
your name is Jack. Sure. Right?
Sure.
Right.
Call me that.
Yeah, call me that. Okay, sure. He didn't care what you called him. He just wanted to get the job done. So when I say there's a lot of parallels that I was seeing, when he teleported in the future and the 3 dogs were talking to him and they gave him the name, this reminded me of Terminator. The first Terminator, where Arnold teleports into the future, right? And he's at the observatory, and you have those 3 guys in the background saying, "Hey, man, what's wrong with you? You got no clothes on?" "I have no clothes." "What is it, laundry day?" "Yes, laundry day." And it's like, this guy's crazy. And you had the 3 punk rockers that were there kind of thing. And one of them pulled a knife on him, and he looks at him and is like, "Give me your clothes." "What?" And he kills the 3 of them. So that seemed very similar to me, how it played out with the dialogue, them hurling insults, them calling him Jack, and that's how he goes forward. So that's one parallel that stood out there for me.
One parallel. Gotcha. Listen, I don't have to say there's so many, but there's so many different visuals and different ways that the show plays out. You're right in regards to the amalgamation of animaloids, in a sense, humanoids, animal type of scenario.
Right.
Like that was very like, you know what? Things might have happened in the future. Things might have been melted and, things might have, people might have mutated. Because now when you're writing this in 2000, we're now past the world of mutation and mutants and stuff like that.
And clones,
so
yep.
What's a possibility? And clones and stuff like that. So what's a possibility you can have that in my future? So Jen was smart and he put that in there. So it's an acceptable thing where you're having stuff like the scenery is futuristic tech type of cities and stuff like that. Then you have underground worlds. You have like jungles going to the mountains. He's walking through with his proper shoes, in a sense, proper Japanese style shoes, going through snow. And I'm like, your foot falls off. And I'm like, okay, all right, Jack, you good. You solid, man. Me, I would have to be wrapping some kind of deer skin or something around my foot, at least to keep my feet from getting frostbitten and stuff like that. But it's hilarious.
It's all about training.
Hilarious. It's all about training, indeed. Yeah, but it's just that type of changes, all that type of stuff is what basically I like. That type of imagery was what definitely pulled me.
Of course, another cool aspect was when they turned around and okay, so Jack and his sword, right? The sword is magic. The sword was given to him by gods. The sword, one of the gods that gave him the sword was Odin. Very reminiscent of, Thor and Mjolnir. Mau. It's like, If you watch this DC my Marvel Cinematic Universe, you get that meow meow, Monir meow meow. So very reminiscent. Got the sword, magical sword by the gods, to carry on and fight the evil. Right. Another thing that also reminded me of Thor. So that was the first part. The second part with Thor was there's an episode where Jack gets into like some cage fight. He gets captured. He gets thrown into a cage. He has to fight robots and other kind of creatures. Yes. But he ended up being turned into a rooster. So the rooster is fighting with all of Jack, because Jack is now a rooster, and he's fighting like a full-out rooster, but he's fighting with all of his skill, without the sword. So all the martial arts skill, and he's just destroying everybody in front of him, no matter how big, how many, how small. This rooster is fighting for his life. And that reminds me of the time where Thor in the comic books was turned into a toad. So sometimes you see a toad, dressed as Thor, because that was Thor. That was actually a storyline that's happened, I think twice, and one time he went out full issue. It was Thor as a toad, with the cape and his armor and his little helmet and a hammer, but he was a toad, the size of a toad, not even human size. So that reminded me of that. That's why I said that was another parallel that I saw. Of course, Jack had to fight his evil self, his evil clone. So Jack usually wears white, a white gi, as you can see behind me. Mm-hmm. This one, he was in black. He had red glowing eyes, had a sword. And so every hero always seems to fight the evil version of himself. Superman has Bizarro, right? Batman has his opposites. Like Hush, for example, would be one of them. This, this time he fought out his own clone, right? Like Spider-Man Clone Wars. So he fought his own clone, which was so cool. Like I saw that episode, and I'm like, oh snap! How do you beat you? Mm-hmm. So that's another one that stood out. And then I got two of my favorites. Is one where it's the ninja episode, where Jack dresses up in a ninja outfit. So I believe he's over in Egypt. Mm-hmm. Aku sends a ninja after him. So the ninja is dressed in black. Jack turns around and takes his clothes and dresses up as a traditional ninja, but all in white. But the imagery of it when they're fighting. So when they're fighting, they're inside of like a tomb kind of thing. And the black ninja, when he's in black, obviously you can't see him. When Jack's hiding in sunlight, which is white, you can't see him. When they crisscross over, then you see Jack, because at one point Jack's now in the shadows, but he's wearing all white, and vice versa. The ninja's in black. So the imagery was amazing. The fight scene was so well done as a ninja fight scene. It wasn't straight out, like how a samurai would fight. Because he got taught as a ninja. It was using stealth, sneak attacks. And, that episode stands out for me. And there's another one I like to call Armor of the Gods, where Jack turns around and he finds the helmets of one of the Greek gods and the gauntlets and all that, and it forms this kind of super being. So those are episodes that stand out to me. And when he teams up with the Spartans, because at one point Jack teams up with the 300 Spartans. Sick.
What? Yeah, go on.
No, man. That was what I was gonna say.
Sick. Listen, for me, there's all these different storylines. One thing I really like about Jack is how his characteristic was always portrayed. Like he always was very, as being an honorable samurai, as an honorable warrior, he's always made sure that he looked out for people, those who were lesser, helped out whatever he can. There's an episode I do remember that he had a way. Again, the main thing about also with this is that Jack got sent to the future. Mm. One of the main goals for Jack is to return back to the past, because he realized that with what he knows now of Aku, he knows how to better suit himself to defeat him, and he knows that he's at his weakest point back in the past. So one of his main goals, I guess really the title goal of all this is to find a way to go back into the past. So there's many times that Jack has found a doorway, or found an opportunity, found some type of way to say, well, if you complete this mission, you will now have the ability to go back in time, go back to your past. Perfect. That's what he does. But I do remember there was one time he was with some Shaolin monks, and there was access at the top of this particular mountain, mountain/volcano. It's a mountain.
Right.
They've been attacked by Aku's henchmen, basically.
Mm-hmm.
following him and everything like that. And the two monks that he was with, they understood the goal. The goal is to get Jack to that endpoint so he can go back in the past and clear this world of the evil of Aku. So this is how Jack is. Jack understands that's his goal. Great. What I liked about it, what I loved about it, in the sense that Jack understood that he had the opportunity. The door was right there. But as he looked back, his monk brothers who got him this far are being overwhelmed by the henchmen, overwhelmed to the point that they were about to die. And Jack, like, say, I cannot be an honorable man. And yes, I may have go back, and then we can go now into, that's hilarious that I just turned on the TV today, and Back to the Future 2, that's what's funny, I made that comment out of nowhere. Right. Back to the Future 2 came on, and then I came in just at the point where Doc Brown was talking about the timeline, and it says, like, this is our timeline. And at some point back in the past, we created a new timeline. And then I started thinking about TVA. Hilarious. So now, I mean, everybody's talking about timelines. So Jack now can go back in the past, clear everything up. So at this point, as per the word of Doc Brown, that if you go back in time and you clear all this up, Einstein and all who are left on the porch, don't worry about it. The timeline will overlap them and they'll be okay. So Jack could have just went into the past, did his part, and took care of a coup back in the days. And there's two Shaolin friends most likely would have survived if he had thought like that. But because he visually saw they're about to be overrun, I cannot let them die.
No. I
had to go and help them. I will find another way. And they were 30 seconds upset. Like, guy, we were at the door. Don't worry about us. We will take life. It's okay. No.
I can't have that on my conscience.
Exactly. I will find another way. And that was it.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that episode, because that brings me back to one of my opening points I said before, where certain key moments stand out. So one with that Shaolin episode, that was the same Shaolin group, that sect, that taught Jack back in the past. So this is why he had that connection with them. Two, in that same episode, he meets the master of that Shaolin clan, right? Mm-hmm. And that was his best friend when he was a little boy training the first time. He survived somehow all those centuries into the future, but he's now merged with a tree. So he's an old man. You see the tree is kind of part of him, and it's got his spirit there to it. So when he saw him, it's like, wait a minute. It's like, hi, Jack. It's like, oh, you know me because we trained together. We were best friends back then. You're still alive up to now. It was almost, and see, that reminds me of Doctor Strange, the Ancient One. The Ancient One found a way to live all them years protecting people. Right. So they kept the Shaolin monastery open all that time, and that was his best friend, who was like pretty much equal skill in the Shaolin arts, that was still there teaching students. And when Jack showed up, more than happy to help out his best friend. So yes, you're right. And that was a moment where Jack turned around and could have made it and said, nope, I can't do this. They were about to sacrifice their lives for me. I can't let that be on my conscience. I went back, saved them. He missed his chance of going through that portal. Okay. There's another time where he had to beat one guy. And if he could beat this one guy, he would have access to the portal to go back. And he fought and fought and fought, but he couldn't beat the guy. The guy wasn't a minion of a coup. He was just a guardian of that portal. And when Jack walked away dejected at the end of that episode, you saw in the portal itself, the guy turns around and he says, Jack, it wasn't your time to go through the portal now. Like Jack didn't hear that. Jack already left the room. And he's like, sorry, Jack, I had to beat you because it was not your time to go back in the portal now. And when you look in the portal, you see an older version of Jack with a long beard, a bigger sword. It almost looked like Conan the Barbarian. If you watch the end of the first Conan with Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, and you go through the whole Conan the Barbarian movie, and at the very end, you see an older Conan sitting on the throne. It was very reminiscent of that. I'm like, wow. So that's what I'm saying. I'm pointing out parallels. So I said, I don't know that they were influenced by it, but I saw either imagery or things that linked it together. So these go on for many more episodes.
Yeah.
Right? It was when they hit episode, when they hit the last season, that was picked up by Adult Swim. So before that, the season before, so it was season 4, but I said 5 seasons, right? Great match. Yeah. So season 4 ended. Yep. It was open wide end, ended, open ended.
Mm-hmm.
They were planning on turning around and doing a couple of movies to wrap up the storyline because they realized they left it open ended. They tried a couple of times to do 4 different movies to wrap up the storyline. It didn't work with different studios. So pretty much 13 years later, Adult Swim said, "Hey, we got you. Wrap it up." And you can be a little bit more graphic if you want to be because the audience is older. This is an older show. So at this point, we catch up with Jack. And you look at Jack and you're like, well, the series has been off the air for 13 years. He's been and it says in the series now, he's been in the future for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
But he still looks the same. Right. What's up with that? If you know where that's from, then kudos to you watching wrestling. Hurricane. So, what's up with that, as I was saying? And the reason for that was when he didn't know this at first, but when he got teleported to the future, he kind of skipped the timeline and it somehow made him not age. He stopped aging. So in the future, he stops aging because he's outside of his timeline. That's how they get. So pretty much he turned out to be immortal. He can still be killed. He can still be hurt. But if nothing happened to him that would, physically kill him, he wouldn't age. And, 50 years now have gone by. Jack hasn't gotten any closer to getting back to the past and dealing with Aku. He's kind of going a little bit and frustrated. Aku has lost it because Aku was like, here I am, all powerful. I've enslaved the world. Everyone's underneath me, and I can't get rid of this one samurai. So Aku starts going to see a psychiatrist because he's losing his confidence that it's 50 years and he can't, he teleported Jack in the future to get rid of Jack, and now he can't get rid of Jack. Very Tony Soprano, right? Sopranos going to see, you're the head of a organization and you're going to see a psychiatrist because panic attacks and lack of confidence. And, so they're both going through mentally their battle. It's playing strains on them. When Jack goes after him one more time, Jack can't kill him. Jack ends up fighting some people. He ends up killing somebody, not a robot, but an actual person. And it weighs on Jack so much, he throws away his sword. The one weapon that can kill Aku, he throws it away. He's like, I'm done. And Adult Swim follows Jack without the sword. Like you see when Jack gets rid of the sword, Jack gets he starts putting on armor. Jack starts walking around with a gun, like a machine gun. Jack just loses it. A lot of those battles that probably would have been easier with him and the sword, and they bring back a lot of characters in season 4. So, season 5, right. Throughout his travels, he met the Scotsman. The Scotsman, everyone loved him, right?
Yes, the Scotsman. Oh my gosh, yes.
Aye, laddie! he would insult Jack so funny, but he respects Jack as a fighter. This guy was like a robust kind of guy, Scotsman. He had a machine gun as a leg. Him and Jack fought. Okay, and then they had to team up. And then he went to Jack once again to get help to save, his wife, the Scotsman's wife, and he helped him out. And then, in season 5, when, he comes back, he's like, oh, don't worry, laddie, I have help. He's like, here's my 100 daughters. Like, the Scotsman has 100 daughters, and they're all fighters that come and help Jack.
Oh, yes.
And then once again, they get into a fight, near the end of that season 5, the Scotsman fighting, and the Scotsman gets killed. And I was like, holy crap, no. And then he comes back as a ghost. It felt to me, he pulled an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Strike me down and I'll return much stronger. Yeah, he did. Magic bagpipes and all. You can't beat the Scotsman. And there's other memorable characters. There's one guy who called himself Samurai. He was like a black, samurai character. But reminded me of MC Hammer.
Yeah. That's true, though. Holy. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, this is what I'm saying. The whole thing, Samurai Jack, it was cool. But, I mean, the last season, it was, it was a lot more grim. They brought in the Daughters of Aku, which was a cult that started worshiping Aku. Aku didn't realize he had nothing to do with this at first. They started worshiping him. And he's like, hey, you guys are worshiping me? I'm being worshipped? You know what? I'm going to give you a little bit of my essence. I'm going to put a little bit of my essence here in this chalice. and the high priestess ended up drinking that essence, out of the chalice, and then she got pregnant and gave birth to 8 girls, which were the daughters of Aku. So, innuendo right there, but didn't play out the way it should have played out biologically for how it explains in biology class to me. But so she gave birth, and they all, they trained these little girls to a certain age, and then they had them go after Aku. But then one of them, long story short, went from there, saw some things what she was taught and what she was seeing was 2 different things about Jack, and then she ended up gaining a respect for Jack and falling in love with Jack. And the daughters of Aku had, powers of Aku, so they were all in black. Their costumes could turn into weapons, and very, once again, reminiscent of a symbiote.
Good call.
Very reminiscent of that. So, and then I said, that ends up with Jack finally going, Kari, I believe her name was, is, Ashi was the one that fell in love with Jack, turns around, saves him, finds out that she has powers of her dad. They finally get back to the past, finally have the big showdown, with everyone that Jack has helped over the years, helping him out during this rebellion, gets rid of Aku, just like his dad, traps him in the sword back into the ground. Thank you very much. Turns around and marries her. Problem being, you got rid of her. Well, not rid of her, got rid of her dad. You got rid of Aku. So getting rid of Aku changes what happens in the future.
Exactly.
So even though she's in the past with him, it's very, okay, they get married, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh, I don't feel well, and then she fades away from existence. Boom, done, gone. So even at the end of the series, and everything he wanted to get, and he got it, came still at a price. But he lives out in the past with his mom, his dad, and a broken heart. It was like, why'd you do that to me? Even when the happy ending was a happy ending, you took it away from me, man. So that there's a lot there. What's your thoughts on that, Rod?
Well, I mean, my thoughts is that the whole scenario is definitely like you said. I mean, he went through the process of trying to have his happy ending. He's trying to have a perfect life. Yeah. He realized the end of his road was to take care of Aku. He took care of Aku.
Yeah.
Done. We're good. Now I want to have a settled life. And like you said, he just basically now not realizing the circumstances or the repercussions of his actions. As like I said before, that's what I was saying the other part before, that you go and change the timeline, things are going to fall back into place. And look at it falls right back into place. But if it falls back into place, Aku was never there in the future for him to give his essence to the priestess, to give birth to you, one of the 8, that you fall in love with Jack, that you come back in the past, from the future to the past. It all gets cleanly wiped away. So unfortunately, it's a good story, and I mean in the sense that they basically it made sense. If you're going to go from the technical aspect of it, it makes sense, and it just shows you that all the dedication. You want to feel for the character. You want to put your heart into the character and realizing that this is, we've been with this guy for the past 4 seasons. We've seen the turmoil. We've seen the drive to him to complete his mission, his mission, and now he's about to put his feet up in that sense and be like, I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to have a family. No, sorry, brother. It ain't happening like that for you, brother. All these four seasons of turmoil. Think we're gonna let you off easy? Sorry, son. You won't get some turmoil right up in here. What? Let me take my daughter back. What?
Yeah.
And that's it. So it's what I like about it too, in the sense that I don't know how people out there would have thought, but when you watch this show, it turns into like a drama type of show. This turns into an adult type of drama show where you're like, what's gonna happen today? Today is Samurai Jack. Recall. Samurai Jack was doing this. Samurai Jack was doing that. Okay. What's going to happen today? Ooh, I'm wondering. I'm anticipating. So now this is a pure drama. This is pure daylight soap opera, cartoon style. Like, what happens? And then saying, sorry, you can't have your happy ending.
You brought up a good point. I mean, if you want to watch a good cartoon animated drama series that plays out really well, this 100% is up there. So, you know what? Here we go. We'll bring this up to a close here, but some final thoughts. So, one, Samurai Jack, does it need to be rebooted? Absolutely no. Does it just need to be re-aired in its entirety? Absolutely yes. Right? Replay it again. Find the whole run. So go find it on a streaming service. Just get the DVD or Blu-ray and check it out. It's worth it. You can sit down there, especially now. We're getting to an age where there's nothing really new coming on TV. So let's go back a little bit. Yeah. Right. Sit down, make it, bring the kids in. This is good for kids up to season 5, depending on the age of kids. So, age appropriate. It ran on Adult Swim, but they will love it. What I would love to see from this is one, there was a video game. So there was actually 2 games. One was like a free little game that you could find online, for your PC years ago. It's an intro thing. And then there's another game that was released on, I think, PlayStation and Xbox, which ties into season 5. Ties into season 5 nicely with the time travel and going back with all the characters and not disrupting the end of the show. So that is cool. So I'll say, 1, Samurai Jack definitely needs to be watched. 2, go and check out the PlayStation game, and you can still play that and still be intertwined within the story. There was a couple of comic books I know on Samurai Jack, but it was just really reminiscent of what was happening on the shows. I would love to see more statues or toy figures from Samurai Jack. And if you like Samurai Jack and you like the drama of it, like the human element, I would highly recommend, 1, watching Robotech series, not Macross. Macross is something different, even though it's very similar on aspects. That's where it's from. But watch Robotech, to see Harmony Gold's version of how they did Robotech and that whole run with the Centrati, the Invid invasion. Usually I know this off bar, right? So all that whole run of everything Robotech, right? So with Scott Bernard, Dana story, of course, Rick. Watch that. You can find them on Netflix, all 65 episodes, and it's a beautiful run with a lot of action in it. So if you like Samurai Jack, that would probably be up your alley. And reading recommendation, I would highly recommend reading Lone Wolf and Cub. Find those comic books, Lone Wolf and Cub. They're more adult themed, so age appropriate, but beautiful run, great story, and even though it's an overall story, each issue has its own beginning and end, right? And you can find them in a little tiny digest. The covers were redone by Frank Miller, and the inside art is the original artist and writer. And even if there's terms you don't understand, they have a glossary at the very back of the book that explains everything. So it gives you actual, historical facts of what time period it was, what was happening in that time period, what certain phrases or words meant. So, and then after reading Lone Wolf and Cub, you'll see lots of similarities with The Mandalorian. So if you watch The Mandalorian, go back and read Lone Wolf and Cub. If you like Samurai Jack, read Lone Wolf and Cub, and then follow it off with Robotech. Drop it in the comments what you think. Rod, wrap it up for me here. What you got?
All right, man. Well, you know what? I'm going to say that that's a great bunch of reading and visual that you're giving out everybody to watch. So I was just definitely can't even think anything more than that. I would just say that Samurai Jack is it's basically a timepiece in the sense that, you know what, the great thing about it that this was done within 2001, 2002, 2004, so early 2000s. Then they did the follow-up, the 5th one in 2017. But the thing is that when you watch it, you can clearly see that, yeah, it may have been done at that time, but the story and all the action, the drama out of it, can still be relevant to today. So you can literally sit down and watch it, and only because it was stamped, dated 2001. Other than that, visually, you see the different, animation was different styles and everything like that.
Yeah, it didn't get dated.
It didn't get dated. You can clearly see that and say, yeah, I can see that now. I can see this type of style now. I can see the storyline. I can see everything now. So I would just definitely say that if you have the opportunity at the time, definitely look out for Samurai Jack. Definitely take it in, and then you really won't be disappointed. You'll definitely be enjoying what you see. you're going to, I keep coming back to the visual arts of it, because the whole concept of it, you're watching a cartoon and you're expecting a lot of, you're expecting a lot of dialogue. But because you don't have any dialogue, it seems weird in the beginning. But once you get through the first 2 to 3 episodes and you're realizing, okay, this is the vein, this is how they're doing stuff. Okay, I see how you guys are approaching it. Then your mind automatically shifts and you're realizing, okay, you're going to start to accept it and start to see it. You know, your mind's going to start picking out stuff. Oh, I'm going to start seeing detail. I'm going to start seeing action.
Yes.
Whatever thing. Why is he doing this? He's not talking. He's running through the forest, running through the bushes, fighting off. And you see the fighting styles and stuff they're doing. You mean like, okay, I can see why he's doing that. Oh, I can see why he's approaching the person. And seeing the characters, how someone who's going to interact with them, how they're carrying themselves, you realize they're not talking. If you're coming from this particular way, you realize like your senses now has been expanded. Well enough to say it that way. But your mind has been expanded to understand I have to now fill in the gaps myself. And you realize you can fill in the gaps very well. So that's why this show basically just pulls me in and realize, like, you know what? I'm good with this. I'm very good with this.
Cool. Yeah, and also some other things from Jendy. So I probably didn't even mention this. So Jendy's done other works. So before Samurai Jack, what did he do, Rod?
Well, there did Dexter's Laboratory.
My Stupid Sister Dee Dee. And Dial M for Monkey. That was my show,
M for
man.
Monkey. Yes, yeah, that was spin-off. That was spin-off of that one. And that was just the catalyst for me. Whenever I watched those two, I was like, oh my God, my heart. I can take this in very well.
Yeah, exactly. Dial M for Monkey, and in there he has one thing, and I even have a part of a house music song where someone took the audio where they bring in Simeon. So Dial M for Monkey had I think Macho Man actually did a voice for one of the characters in there in one episode. The champion, which was reminiscent to a Marvel episode with the champion. So Jenny did Dial M for Monkey. He did Dexter's Laboratory. So that there you can watch with your kids. And as an adult, you still are going to laugh over this. Like, why did this little boy have a different accent than everybody else? And the beauty of it is you never knew what his dad did as a day job. And when you find out what his dad did as a day job was hilarious. Do you know what Dexter's dad's day job was?
Actually, I didn't know. I do not.
Right, because all the time he just said, "Oh, honey, I'm going to work," and he walked out with his glasses and all that. His dad was a stuntman. His dad was like Evel Knievel. They showed him in an episode where he came into show and tell, and his dad's like, "Oh yeah, it's show and tell, and it's work day." He's like, "Okay," so they brought his dad in. He's like, "Oh, Dad, what do you do?" He's like, "Oh, well, hey Dexter, I know you never see me what I do when I leave the house, but this is what I do all day long. This is how I earn my money." And he had a ramp out in the backyard, and he was jumping the school buses on a motorcycle with an outfit very reminiscent of Evel Knievel. So for those that didn't catch that tidbit, there you go. Dexter's dad was a stuntman. Like Evel Knievel. That's that. But during the house, he was very calm. So now it explains why Dexter might have that wild side. So yes, he did Dexter's Laboratory. He did, as we said before, Star Wars Clone Wars, which you can find on Disney Plus, or go and buy the Blu-ray DVD. And currently, he's got a new series on Adult Swim called Primal. That's been going for a couple of seasons, where it's a dinosaur and a caveman. And the two of them, ended up fighting each other, and then they end up teaming up episode through episode, which reminds me a lot of the Marvel series of Devil Dinosaur and Moon Boy. So Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur.
Okay.
Old school series done by Jack Kirby by Marvel Comics. It reminds me a lot of that from what I've seen, watched, and know of both. But, I've read some of those comics. Yeah, I'm that age. So... On that note, you've got your reading material, something to watch. Thank you for watching the Iconist podcast and listening in. And remember, this whole world was started with a pencil, a piece of paper, and imagination. Keep on dreaming. Keep on supporting. Thank you very much.
I am the great and the powerful Aku. Gun.
Samurai Jack. Everybody, Samurai Jack.
Ladies and gentlemen, Samurai Jack. Thank you.
Rod, you killed me, man.
Are we done?
We're done. Nice.